Hello and welcome, family, to another Ask Dr. Mumbi. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways, and that you're moving into living life truly family on your own terms. We really want to thank everyone that sponsors this show through our Patreon and everyone who sends us love donations. There is a gift for you in the mail, so definitely, be on the lookout for that. And in case you're thinking of relocating to the motherland, a lot of you have been sending me emails asking me very individual questions like, where do I get an apartment in Nairobi? How can I find a safe this? Definitely join our relocation service on Patreon, because that's something that I don't do. It's outsourcing services that I do. And there's also a lot of information on there. So you could even join for $5 a month and check out over 50 videos about what relocating to Africa means, the tips on how to buy land and all that. But those are stories for other days. Family, a lot of you have reached out to wanting to know my quote unquote thoughts on Rishi Sunak becoming the Prime Minister of the divided kingdom. He's the first foreigner ever. He's the youngest man, and he's 42. Remember, we are in a 6-year, 2022. There's so much there, family. So much spiritually. Remember, we don't cover all the stories, but we definitely like to see things with a spiritual lens, because there's so much. You see, the powers that be rely a lot on spiritual energy and kind of trying to create a resonance with the spiritual powers that are at play in the season, in the decade, in the year, or whatever. And so, Rishi becoming the prime minister is not by accident. Remember, I told you guys when it was Liz and Rishi that it was like the game it's a theater, family. The world is a theater. And I hope that you're not a supporting actor or just, what do they call those guys who are like the fill-ins? I can't remember. I hope you're a main actor, which is why I always encourage you to live your best life and to kind of create your own narrative. So you're not living in someone else's story when you can be the main character in your own. But those are stories for the day. So Rishi family. I remember when I was talking about Rishi versus Liz. I told you because there's a return of the feminine energy. And there is also a rising of the Asian energy. And if you're familiar with the Anunnaki, then you will realize that the rulership has moved from, the god of the Europeans, or the one who was over Europe, or the Western world, the reptilian looking guy. I don't want to get too into it because some guys don't even know what I'm talking about. And it's now moved into, and I'm just saying God because you guys won't get it. Unless you go deeper, I'm encouraging you to go and look into the Anunnaki story. And now we've moved into a season where the God of Asia and Africa is in control. The baton has been handed over. And that's why, like, the spiritual, there's a new dispensation. Africa will rise by any means necessary. Asia is already rising. Africa should be at the same level as Asia. And I'll even talk about the connection between Kenya and Rishi on my main channel, Dr. Mumbi Show. So definitely this Sunday, I usually publish shows on Sunday there. So definitely, go and subscribe there. But family, so we saw like the feminine energy. The big thing that I saw with Liz not being able to maintain, because they tried to pick the feminine energy over the Asian energy, the Indian energy. But the reason Liz failed is because the feminine power that has come back is that of a black woman, the original mother, the quote unquote, the spirit of the great mother, the black womb, is in the Queen of the South. She is in the female Messiah. But so you can't carry that energy unless you have that melanin. It's like one of my favorite quotes is, I met God and she is a woman. She is black. I love that. So Liz, because she didn't have that melanin, she couldn't carry the energy and the weight of this season, even though she was blessed by Elizabeth and some stuff went down when she went there trying to put her in. trying to give her some energy, some power. It didn't work, family. And now we have Rishi, the youngest prime minister in 200 years. But not even that. The fact that he's the first foreign prime minister ever should confirm to you what I've been saying, that it is truly over for the so-called British Empire. Truly over. Not even just in the heavenlies, but here. And the reason that the Indians have been able to do this is because they maintained their gods. They maintained their spiritual identity, no matter where they were taken. Because, the Indians were brought to East Africa to build the railway, Rishi is from East Africa. I'll do the whole thing on him being from Kenya later. But wherever they went, family, they brought their temples, they brought their shrines, and they kept their culture. They didn't mix, they didn't mingle, they never gave up their language. And you'll see the countries that were able to maintain their language or had more of a homogeneous nation were able to survive the onslaught of the British Empire. But the Bantu nation, for example, because I think for us now we have to go deeper into the nations that we belong to in Mama Africa, because we're not all the same as Africans. And the Bantu nation, we had spread ourselves everywhere. And literally now, we were living amongst nations. Some of them were our enemies, some of them were frenemies, some of them were friends. And we have suffered greatly for that. But if you look all over the world, family, India has their temples on top of some exclusive mountains in Switzerland. They have them in Canada. They have them in the divided states. They even have them here in Kenya. Everywhere around the world, they have taken their gods, and their gods have protected them. Their gods have made them rich. Their gods have insulated them. I mean, Idi Amin of Uganda was the very first who even dared to kick them out. And if you look now, and they've penetrated society, they've created, they've just, the Indian mentality of oneness, where I come in, then I'll bring my cousin, then my cousin, they're always just promoting themselves. And this is something that us as Africans, through this individualism, we really lost that. Whereas when you go somewhere, you just want you and your family, and you even want to disconnect from your roots. So if you look right now just at the kind of global spiritual empire that India has built, I was even looking at this, where the CEO of Google is an Indian, the CEO of Microsoft is an Indian, the CEO of Adobe, the CEO of Twitter, the CEO of MasterCard, the CEO of Pepsi, of IBM, of Albertson, of Micron, of NetApp, of Nokia, of Palo Alto, Arista, Novartis, to just name a few. I think all of them literally are Fortune 500 companies. All of them are Indians. And they have a wide network. Like this year, family, the White House celebrated the biggest ever Diwali celebration. And don't take it for granted that Kamala is both Indian specifically and black. Because these people have known that there was going to be a changing of the guard. But they still want to keep themselves in the game. So that's why they would pick someone who's really not that talented, not even that liked, but she has the energies to sustain the Mzungu man when their reign is over, because she carries that signature or that resonance of being black and of being Indian. And so Diwali was celebrated in a huge way in the White House. What do you think that is? That's the way people set up altars, family. That's how people set up altars. And Kamala is there for a reason. And Rishi, this thing about they maintain their spiritual identity, which is why they are rising so easily right now. Rishi was also selected on the biggest international holiday of the Indians, the Festival of Light, Diwali. That's not by accident either, family. Becoming the first ever, Indian, first ever foreigner, youngest in 200 years. Don't look so much at the story, look at the character, and then try and have that spiritual connection to understand what is going on. Because we've moved into spiritual time, family. So what is happening here physically is not just happening like that, and it hasn't been happening like that for very long, but we weren't aware. But in this new dispensation, it's good for us to open our eyes and see things deeper. And of course, his Kenyan connection had a big thing to do with him being elected on a spiritual level. I'll be sharing that in the future, family. But what message we can take instead of now East Africans and Kenyans were like, oh, we gave you Obama, now we've given you Rishi. We should now start to understand what is so special about Kenya. I'll talk about that on my main show. But the Bantus, we should be asking ourselves, why aren't we? Because now everything is for us. Why aren't we on the level of so-called India, for example? If we say maybe there's 1 billion to 2 billion Bantus alone, the population in Africa is underreported, right? I mean, you know that, right? We're not just 1 billion people, we're more like 3 stories for the days. We need to follow their model and understand, and overstand that as long as we don't have our shrines, as long as we don't have a God that looks like us, who's looking out for us, as long as we're in this foreign matrix, then our power will continue to be taken right out of our hands. And if we want to really claim this, it's going to happen, whether we are part of it or not. Because the most painful thing that's going to happen in Mama Africa is that those who are in the religious psychosis are going to fall with Babylon. Because Mama Earth, Mama Africa has to rise. It's our season. With or without you, with or without me. I know I'm going to be there. Hey, I'm going to be there. Because I got my head on straight. You see, death is an illusion. We have to think of this. You can think of this as a class or as a meeting or as a party that you've been invited to. As a VIP room that you've been invited to. That's what Mama Earth is. That's what Mama Africa is. That's what Mama Earth is. And if you don't act right, you can't stay in the room, family. And for me, the increasing message is like, not everyone is going to make it. But the few of us who know what's up need to come together and start doing what needs to be done to rebuild the Bantu nation. But those are stories for other days. Tuko pamoja.